Japan is entering a new turning point in history. It approved its biggest military buildup since World War II. It's all to counter China. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Japan has been a pacifist nation since it was defeated by the U.S. in World War II. The U.S. helped write Japan's new constitution just to make sure of that. Under the U.S.'s terms, Article 9 of Japan's constitution stipulated that they would renounce war and have no standing army, navy, or air force. The U.S. was so mad at Japan for declaring war on them in 1941, they said, that's it. You're not allowed to war anymore. And if you do, that means war. Japan has interpreted Article 9 to allow for self-defense forces, but they're not supposed to have offensive capabilities. However, that began to change under former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He knew that China is a threat to Japan and the rest of the world, which was why he increased Japan's military capabilities and pushed for legal justification to help allies who are under attack. Even after Abe's assassination earlier this year, Japan continues to up its military game, thanks to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and China's threats against Taiwan. Last week, Japan released its newest national security strategy. The previous Japanese national security strategy came out a decade ago. Back then, North Korea was Japan's top security concern. But this year's national security strategy singles out China as the greatest strategic challenge ever. Do you know how bad you have to be to make someone focus on you more than North Korea? That'd be like if a tiger were walking right towards someone and they shouted, "Look out, Pete Davidson's behind that tiger, protect the women." Japan's national security strategy also adds Russia alongside China and North Korea as Japan's major threats. According to current Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, Japan has reached a turning point in its history. It's responding to this change by approving its biggest military buildup since World War II, causing some grandpas to yell, "I knew this day was coming." They were just lulling us into a false sense of security with their robots and anime and cat girls. Japan will double its defense budget by 2027, from 1% of its GDP up to 2%. Which may sound small, but it's an increase of about $315 billion over the next 5 years, causing most Americans who've seen the U.S. military budget to yell, "That's all? Oh, that's adorable. Calm down, Grandpa." It's no coincidence that Japan wants this done by 2027. Many military officials believe China wants to be able to invade Taiwan by 2027, which the Chinese Communist Party would obviously deny by saying that's preposterous. We want to invade Taiwan way sooner than 2027. Taiwan is vital to Japan's interests. If China were to invade Taiwan, China could attack U.S. and Japanese forces stationed in Japan's military bases. Japan wants to prevent that from happening. Under its new defense budget, Japan would become the world's third largest military spender, behind the U.S. and China. Where will all this money go? Fingers crossed, Catgirl Mecca. I'll tell you after the break. Welcome back. Japan is upping its military defense spending to deter China. On top of improving its military infrastructure, cyber defense, and missiles, Japan's already fortifying its islands, adding more Aegis-equipped destroyers, developing sixth-generation jet fighters, and making combat drones to assist fighters. And finally, Japan is building a real-life Gundam. At least I hope so. According to Japan's new national security documents, Japan's increased military budget will also go to fortifying public infrastructure like airports to accommodate military planes, improving the transportation and storage of ammunition and fuel, and subsidies for building up the national defense industry. Wait, Japan's trying to improve their transportation? That's like hearing that Canada is trying to improve poutine. I didn't think that was possible. To me, you are perfect. Plus, more than $7 billion will go towards improving Japan's cyber capabilities, and around $60 billion to new missiles and missile defense. According to Japanese media, this includes up to 500 US-made Tomahawk missiles, as well as new domestically produced missiles that can strike enemy targets 1,000 kilometers away. We're talking about the type of missiles that could theoretically be used for preemptive strikes on military bases. And hypersonics aren't off the table. You know what else shouldn't be off the table? This is a huge change from Japan's traditional understanding of self-defense. Even 1 year ago, some experts wouldn't have imagined Japanese people supporting this kind of security initiative. But now, a majority of people in Japan see enemy base strike capability as necessary. Again, because China is such a threat. I wonder if this makes North Korea self-conscious. Hey, look at me. Am I not scary? Why aren't you as afraid of me anymore? The Japanese government is getting around the legal constraints by calling strikes on enemy bases a counter-strike capability, with a heavy emphasis on being defensive in nature. According to Prime Minister Kishida, this capability is indispensable as deterrence to discourage enemy attacks. On top of all this, Japan's Army, Navy, and Air self-defense forces are being placed under a joint command. This would help Japan respond to emergencies quicker and boost coordination with the U.S. The U.S. welcomed the strategies as a momentous milestone for U.S.-Japan relations and for making a free and open Indo-Pacific an achievable reality. You know who didn't welcome the strategy? Besides Grandpa, the Chinese Communist Party. Chinese officials and state-run media claim Japan is hyping tensions. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin urged Japan to act upon the political consensus that the two countries are cooperative partners and do not pose a threat to each other. Pro tip: the easiest way to tell if someone is a threat is if they constantly need to remind you that they're not a threat. Sure, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't pose a threat. Just ignore all the times they encroached on Japanese waters, stole Japanese technology, and encouraged anti-Japanese hate. Plus all those missiles China launched close to Japan's southern islands. Even North Korea is looking at it like, yeah, we get it now. We might even make China our #1 threat. For Japan, this is a proactive step in countering China, but there are some challenges. I'll tell you what those are right after this quick break. Welcome back. Japan faces several major challenges if it wants to ramp up its military. For one, many pacifists are still against giving Japan power that could theoretically allow it to strike other countries first. And there's no clear consensus on what constitutes an armed attack. Although the Japanese armed attack I'm most afraid of involves tentacles. If you know, you know. Some take the position that Japan can use force even if the enemy hasn't attacked yet, so long as Japan detects an imminent attack. Others take the position that Japan can only use force after being attacked first. But politics aside, there are some logistical challenges Japan needs to overcome, too. As the Ukraine war has demonstrated, war uses up a lot of ammo. Japan doesn't have enough. Japan has not historically done well at stockpiling large numbers of munitions. On top of that, many of Japan's munition depots are getting too old. If Japan wants to increase its munitions stocks, including missiles, then it needs to build new depots or upgrade older ones. The country known for bullet trains is running low on bullets. So far, about 70% of Japan's munitions are stored in Hokkaido Island up north. If Japan wants to react fast in the Indo-Pacific and reduce losses from a Chinese first strike, then it may need more munition depots spread out in the south. According to one of Japan's major newspapers, the Japanese government plans to build about 70 munition depots within 5 years and 130 by 2035. Also, I'm pretty sure Munitions Depot is the name of a store in Texas, and there's probably more than 130 of them. Ammo isn't the only logistical challenge Japan faces. It also needs to invest more in air and naval capabilities. By the end of the decade, Japan will have only about 30 C-130Hs and C-2s. That's not enough to sustain conflict across multiple islands. Things are even worse with its sea-based equipment. Only 3 Asumi-class LSTs make up Japan's heavy sea-lift capabilities. Of course, how can you do all this without money? For Japan, paying for all this will be a taxing problem. Literally. There's debate over whether the government will need to cover its increased spending with government bonds, spending cuts, or tax increases. Issuing debt would be a huge problem since Japan's debt is already more than twice the size of its GDP. In other words, Japan owes twice as much as what it makes, causing most broke Americans to yell, "That's all?" Aw, it's adorable. So far, Japan's prime minister says he wants to raise taxes by the equivalent of more than $7 billion annually, not by relying on borrowing. We'll have to see how they get all that money, because if they can't get those funds, their Gundams will wind up looking like this. And now, as a thank you to all of my wonderful fans who support China Uncensored through the crowdfunding website Patreon or the exclusive social media platform Locals, I'll answer one of your questions. Today's question comes from Ian Pendleton on Patreon. I've been watching your episodes for about 4 years now, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone on this show talk about the cat warrior diplomacy used by the Taiwanese government. Has it already been discussed in the past, or has it just never come up for some reason? Well, Ian, we've talked about elements of Taiwan's cat warrior diplomacy, but we haven't called it that. What is cat warrior diplomacy? It's a direct contrast to China's aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy. Taiwan uses its soft or cat warrior diplomatic power to counter attacks on its sovereignty, promoting itself as a freedom-loving, peaceful nation in contrast to a belligerent China. Here's an example. When the Chinese Communist Party banned Taiwanese pineapple imports to hurt Taiwan economically, Taiwan rebranded their pineapples as freedom pineapples. They called for Taiwanese people to eat more pineapples. And other countries like the US, Japan, and Canada supported Taiwan's pineapples too. So if the idea is soft diplomacy, why is it called cat warrior diplomacy and not like bunny warrior diplomacy? Well, the term was invented by Taiwan's de facto ambassador to the US, Xiaobi Kim, who has 4 cats of her own. She came up with it when asked how she would counter China's wolf warrior diplomats. According to Xiao, Taiwan needs to be nimble and flexible and survive in small spaces, like cats. But just like cats, Taiwanese people can't be coerced and have a mind of their own. Hearing that, it does seem pretty fitting. But cat warrior diplomacy hasn't caught on as a term the way wolf warrior diplomacy has. But that doesn't mean it's not working. Thanks for your question, Ian, and for your longtime support of our show through Patreon. And for those of you who are not supporters already, check out patreon.com/China Uncensored and learn how you can contribute to the show while also getting some cool perks, like us answering your questions on the show. The link is below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.